Hey, gang. I don't know what it is, but there's a shadow on my right. Everything's set up the same way every day. Maybe not that set of blinds behind me. I'm going to close that, I think. But today, it's World War III. He said it. Donnie Boy said it. World War III. And maybe he's not quite as ignorant to the obvious as I've been saying. Hopefully, everybody else is listening today. Blake, Matt, to name two. I have been saying for more than a year that already the conflicts that were in place, the wars that were in place, have created World War III. And this is what we as a society have to understand. It's not the same anymore. You think cars change from the 1950s to now and nothing else changes? You think technology changes? Hell, you think technology happens and is born compared from the 1950s till now? War is not going to change too. When was the last time we actually declared war on another country? It was World War II, if I'm not mistaken. But really, how many wars? Boom. How many wars have we been in? You don't call that a war because a group of 535 people didn't vote on it? I got an idea. Why don't you ask the families of the people who died in those conflicts if it was a war? Why don't you ask the soldiers themselves who came back with all kinds of injuries if it's not a war? Why don't you ask if they think it was a war? Because I'll tell you for free, they think it was a war. Things change. And we, as a society, as humans, or people who pretend to be human, Donnie, are you listening? We change, we adapt, we become something else. We go from standing shoulder to shoulder, marching across an open battlefield, pointing at somebody else and firing, hoping like hell you hit them, to moving in and out of trenches, to moving through forests and in and out of trees, and then buildings. And before long, Israelis are bombing hospitals on the guise of the bad guys hiding there. Then we share information over text message and tell our own citizens there was nothing to see here. That's all war. So when I say that Syria has something to do with Ukraine and has something to do with the rest of the Middle East, even though it's just a civil war, sit back and consider it. I'm not telling you that you got to take me as the gospel. All I've ever asked is that you sit back and consider it. That's all. But for the people like Blake Fisher who don't want to do that, either because they think they know better or they haven't matured into a level that says it doesn't matter if I think that person is right or wrong. What matters is that I double check myself by reconsidering their position. And as such, I might still learn something anyway, whether that other source is right or wrong. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The interweavings of what I've been saying is World War III. But also, we're going to continue talking about the Bill of Rights. Last time we started with the Fifth Amendment. Really haven't taken that as far as what we can and what I think I should take it for you so you learn about it and learn why due process and for whom it's being denied right now by our government, why that's so important, and why you, a white guy older than 45 years of age with a decent job, needs to care about the brown guy who's not. This is Up the Middle, politics for the rest of us. I'm Yergs, a voice that sounds like yours. Good morning, Ken, as always. Just came from 2 calls today where in both I mentioned you. Ken says good morning to me and the rest of the gang. Hello, everybody. For right here, it's Thursday, although we can go down the times. It's 11:08 here in the East Coast, 8:08 out there on the left coast, 4:08 in London, 17:08 in Berlin. Shout out to, I got to pull this up here, gentleman that I met on this one call, Maru Wan. I am really interested in learning more about this guy. He is in Germany, and he joined our first call today. It's that Thursday morning call I do every week. I attend every week. It's not my group. It is a meetup group. It's for podcasters like me, radio folks like me, any content creator. And he is getting into it. He is from Germany, or he's in Germany. I don't know that he's from there, but that's where he was calling in from today. And I'm going to talk with him further about what he does in, I think, cybersecurity. And I'll also help him get into creating the content that he's looking to create. So that's Berlin, 17:09 hours there. It's 18:09 in Gaza, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Kyiv, and Moscow. 11:09 p.m. in Perth. Shout out to Scotty, who I just got off a call with moments ago from Radio X in Australia. Learn more and listen to their rock station by going to radiox.com.au. We're talking about how he and I are both expanding our companies, monetizing our companies, but also creating other stations. He's venturing out into talk, and I'm excited as all hell to help him develop that, as well as the other technical projects that everybody at Radio X and I here at Mastiff Media will be working on together to create our own independence, security, and success. So 11:10 in Perth, 10 minutes after midnight in Tokyo, 1:10 a.m. in Melbourne, Sydney, and Canberra. And here she comes. My puppy is running around like she owns the place. So World War III. The last time we had a world war that was acknowledged as such Started in the 1930s, about 90 years ago, on or about. At least the political climate was at least started by then. Hitler was out of jail. He's becoming active through German politics and Austrian politics and the whole more regional than anything. Don't you even start barking. No. That's the downside to having the windows open, is that she can hear things going on outside, and she reminds everybody that they need to come say hi to her. So it looks like we are up on Up the Middle radio show today. We had some issues yesterday, and we're unable to connect from there. But we got people there. We got people on my profile, D Live on my page for Facebook. I don't know if I discontinued YouTube or not. That we will be doing that, by the way. So let me know if I need to send you a link now to anything. One of the easiest places to go is yergz.com, YERGZ.com. And, I need to create a nice little graphic for that too. Not a graphic, but you're going to see what I'm about to talk about. .com. For video and audio. And that's not it. That's the wrong one. There we go. So yergz.com and yergz.radio. I don't know if you have to add the HTTP stuff or not. Let me see something here. Just type in yergz.radio. Boom. Goes right to it. Awesome. Boom. Yergz Radio, now available at yergz.radio. Awesome. Oh, boom. Yergz Radio. Yeah. So when apparently the player kicks on right away. I don't know if you heard that. Yergz Radio, now available at yergz.radio. Our name is our address. Nice and simple. If you're getting the audio only, best place to get it is right from the website. Unless, of course, you've got a favorite player, a favorite directory that you get internet radio from. Otherwise, go to yergz.com to get the video feed. Now, the video feed is only live when we are live. Yergz Radio is 24/7. So, World War. I had to restart a clock, sorry. World War. Last time we had a declared obvious world war started about 90 years ago. I do a self-check or a fact check. I think it was World War II. I don't think it was in Korea or Vietnam. Yep. The last time the United States declared war was on June 4th, 1942. Prior to that, the U.S. had declared war on Japan on December 8th, 1941. Germany and Italy, December 11th, 1941. And by the way, the 1942 was Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania. which also made up Axis powers. So essentially, World War II. Now, again, like I said a moment ago, is that the last war we were in? Go back to the neighborhood that I grew up in and ask the guy that used to live across the street from me, Harry Kappenstein, if he went to war when he was in Korea. Ask my dad's best friend, Rick Moore, if he went to war when he was in Vietnam. It's going to be a rather one-sided conversation because Rick lost his life there. Ask classmates of mine from high school. One of my best friends, Pennsylvania State Trooper Ray Schermerhorn, if he was at war when we first went into Iraq. In fact, he was one of the first to go into Iraq. Nobody declared war then. But was it any less of a war just because a body of 500 people didn't weigh in on it? Probably the least effective 500 people that could weigh in on it. Therefore, nobody really cares. So when we talk about a world war, again, just because the deep state or the liberal media hasn't declared it a world war doesn't mean that it ain't there. Who supports Syria? Iran? Probably China. Definitely Russia. In Trump 1.0, he was told by all of the members of the Joint Chiefs not to leave Syria. You'll destabilize the region. What did he do? And how fast was the reaction? He left anyway. And the reaction I'm talking about is the influx of Russian troops into the areas held by American forces. What does that do? It kind of remains to be seen whether or not we really fully left, because as you may know, Bashar al-Assad is no longer in control of Syria, nor is that Syrian government. So the rebels actually won out. Remind me of something. Where did al-Assad go when he left Syria? Who did he go crawling to? Russia, who was already at war with Ukraine. Remember the attack they did? Well, forget about that, because they were already in the Crimean Peninsula, a legitimate part of the country of Ukraine. Whether Russia actually has a claim to it or not, modern day politics and geopolitical lines show that property in Ukraine until Russia went in there prior to their more recent invasion. Who is Ukraine supported by? Almost all of the rest of Europe and the United States. Remember that one deal, another one that our country has now reneged on, where we promised to back Ukraine eternally if they gave up their nuclear weapons program, which they did. And until recently, we did. Back them, that is. Enter Donald Trump, who, by the way, if you're not tracking, has numerous ties, legal and otherwise, to Russia. No, he doesn't. Let's go back to 2016 when he defeated Hillary Clinton in what we thought was a free and fair election. Well, Russiagate, we all know about that. It was investigated and it was proven not to have had anything to do with Trump. Wasn't it? What are you getting at, Yergs? Are you being misleading to a Facebook fan? Fans? No. Because fast forward to the Congress that was in place in 2022, Republican led, by the way, who said that, in fact, you know what? There was Russian collusion in 2016. So here we are bitching and moaning about the 2020 election being fair, which, according to Trump's own Department of Homeland Security, was the most secure election in history. Yet now we know 2016 was, in fact, not secure. Now there's rumblings about 2024 having been rigged. And do we get this with like every election? Maybe. And doesn't that kind of cheapen the value for when it really happens? Definitely. Ken says we are on the Facebook page today, on Up the Middle. Yeah, so for some, you actually might have to. Ken says you normally don't have to add in the HTTP or anything. So there's two out there now. HTTP is now becoming old school and is actually becoming frowned upon. Oh, my poor dog. HTTPS means that your site has a secure socket layer. It's an extra level of encryption that many browsers are actually requiring. And you're going to get, it says an unsafe website, blah, blah, blah. And some of the URLs that I have, to include .radio, may or may not have that encryption. Well, the .radio for Yerg's Radio goes to yergs.com. It's just easier to say yergs.radio, and it's sexier. But yergs.com is encrypted. So now we're talking about the possibilities of 2024 having been hacked. And without getting too far in the weeds there, I'll just say that Pennsylvania had some bomb scares at polling places. And apparently, and I haven't investigated or looked too far into this yet, that's coming. But apparently, when these places were evacuated and when they came back into operation, there was a huge difference in the numbers in Donald Trump's favor. Right now, all I got is that's the current conspiracy theory that's rolling around. What really is going on, we'll find out soon enough. We know Lee Harvey Oswald had nothing to do with shooting Kennedy. So give it time. Maybe about 70 years, but give it time. So now we're tied with the Middle East and Russia and the Middle East and the United States. Let's bring in Iran. Well, first of all, they're pro-Syria. There's that. Next, they're anti-Israel. There's that. Who's pro-Israel? Most of Europe and the United States. Who's anti-Israel? Russia. I mean, it couldn't be worked together any more clear. China's in on that. China is also not too favorable towards Taiwan. No shock there. But who is? We are. Can you see how this is? It's not, it's almost today where you almost can't have a war without it being a world war and still be a first world country. Maybe a third world country like Syria having a civil war could be considered to be a little bit more isolated. But with that technology that we saw or that we talked about, that was born, not just developed, Syria is immediately on the international stage. In January of 1996, I went to minor league baseball umpire school. And for the next 2 years, I was a minor league baseball umpire. There we talked about ESPN, SportsCenter, other sports stations that are on cable news and cable TV. You make a bad call, the world knows about it before the argument that you have with the coach is even over. Way back when it was just networks covering live events in the newspaper reporting about it the next day, nobody knew about it until the next day unless they were actually watching the game. Now, it's immediate. Now, fast forward from 96 to 06 to 16, almost 30 years later, it's not immediate. It's as it happens. And so to say that we're not in a world war when literally almost the whole world is at war is beyond irresponsible, I think. I want you to think about that. Are we in a world war? Or am I all wet? And keep in mind one very important thing. By design, I hadn't even mentioned tariffs. So are these wars isolated? Yeah, no. I got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Bill of Rights. This is Up the Middle on the Mastiff Media Network. We'll be right back. What are you doing later? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to the gym, but not just any gym. Momentum Fitness and Wellness. Walk right up to the door. There's a QR code on the door. You can sign up right there. You've got no excuse. But not only that, their equipment is amazing. It's kept up well. It's expanded. There's stretching area. There's CrossFit. There's hardcore training, a dedicated area for stretching, dunk tanks, sauna, everything you need to get that Hernando beach body or keep your Clearwater beach body. You can train with your shirt off, you can scream, you can yell, and you won't be intimidated either. Go to Momentum Fitness and Wellness on US 19 in Bayonet Point, Jasmine Estates. Build the momentum. That momentum. Build the space. Scan the QR code in the top corner of your screen and check out all the services offered by John and everybody at Build a Space. Then scan the QR code that's in the middle of the screen and join Biz Growth Collective. Free to join up if you're in Florida. Free to join up if you're in Florida. And if you're not in Florida, let me know. We'll make this work. All you have to do is buy a little bit of ad spots here at Master Media on Yerg's Radio, in the upcoming Right Talk Radio, Rainbow Radio, our sports station. You'll be on our websites. You'll be on our social media. You will be you might even be on the Master Media minivan. Getting wrapped now next week, not today. Biz Growth Collective is like the new LinkedIn, only better. They'll help you with compliance, to include your licensing, and the best way to network. Not about finding like-minded people for politics, like LinkedIn. It's about finding like-minded people for biz growth. The Biz Growth Collective. And Build a Space. Check them both out. I'll leave the QR codes up for a little bit. Up next, the Bill of Rights. Back to the Bill of Rights. Actually, we've been talking about that for a while now. I wonder, I didn't pull this up like I wanted to, so bear with me. Yeah, that's what I had the other day. Good. Good. Actually, I don't think this is one. Here we go. Okay. So the Fifth Amendment. Hand down the tunes. The Fifth Amendment from the Constitution states, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces, Army, Navy, or in the militia, reserves, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. That's when you're court-martialed. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. Double jeopardy. Once you're found not guilty, you're not guilty. nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself or herself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall property be taken for public use without just compensation. So we went through that earlier, but hit on it again because of its relevance, not only to any American, but the fact that I think many of us believe that it is badly being violated today. How so? We can fake it all we want. Pam Bondi can tell you that anybody's guilty, not just Garcia. I want to ask that too, by the way. I meant to do that. So there's that one. Okay. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Here's some of the things that we know. And the risk that his case, and this is where I was going with this, you don't have to be a brown person to be a target. But here's, well, we can, I think I'll, because they're also covering, there's a senator who made a trip to El Salvador, Van Hollen. And of course, he was stiff armed by the puppet government that exists there. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is 29 years old. He is from El Salvador. He's married to a U.S. citizen and the father of 3 children. He was deported about a month ago on what the administration, the regime, as some of us call it, called an administrative error. All right, I spent my entire adult life working in the federal government, and we make errors all the time. Anything administratively is fixable. How so? Well, we've got a president who, by and large, is known as, and still a man, until history succeeds otherwise. But the president is regarded as the most powerful man in the world. This president has intentionally started trade wars with allies like Canada, Mexico, and the entire European Union, also with potential or likely enemies like China, and expects not only to win these trade wars, but expects other governments equally as strong as ours diplomatically to just agree to his terms cheerfully, and world peace is maintained. Then he wants to annex Greenland and the Panama Canal. For good measure, maybe there's a reason we're not being told. I know there's theories that have been floated that make perfect sense. But nevertheless, there's still a process, a due process, hence the word due. It's owed, that must be engaged in first. But he can do it without that, and everybody's going to be happy, just like the trade war. But El Salvador kicks his ass. Well, it was an administrative error, but, not ours, El Salvador. And of course, El Salvador can't do anything because they're admitting that they're either too weak or that they're Trump's bitch. So we can do all that other stuff, but we can't get one person back from a country that just admitted they'll do what we say. We can't get him back because they don't want to get him back. That's what needs to be said. And that's why if somebody like Van Hollen doesn't step up, regardless of what T. Rump calls it, or regardless of what the vice president of El Salvador says, Garcia's going to die. This ain't that hard. I've been telling you that all week. I've been saying that for even longer than that. Why was he mistakenly deported? So says the Trump administration, who accused Garcia of being a member of MS-13. Garcia has never been convicted or charged with a crime. And in 2019, a judge in Maryland granted him a withholding of removal status that allowed him to legally work and live in the U.S. He was granted a work permit by the Department of Homeland Security and lived and worked in Maryland up until his deportation. No criminal record. Because he got a tattoo. Now tell me, Pam Bondi, when you stood, I believe it was the White House lawn, and called this man a criminal and said he's going to be deported anyway. Can you explain where this thing in the document we read moments ago called due process? Tell us where that is. Tell us, more importantly, why you so cheerfully denied him of that. And do it with a straight face. Tell the truth as you do it. And don't mention Donald Trump's name, title, or position. I dare you. You can't do it. Anybody with a brain knows you can't do it. But there you are. Also being Trump's bitch. You're not being an attorney general. Is that what you call it? You're enforcing the law by kidnapping someone, trafficking them to another custody or to another country, holding them against their will, and false imprisoning them? Again, without due process? Show me where he's been in court. I'm not finding anything. His court case timeline: on March 24th, Garcia's wife filed a lawsuit against the United States in Maryland District Court. On April 4th, a Maryland judge ruled that Garcia's detention without any documentation was illegal. Yet, I think that was something he did over the phone. I think anybody else can make that same determination by Googling it. The judge also ruled that he would be irreparably harmed if left in El Salvador, and subsequently ordered his return to the U.S. Let's say he is a member of MS-13. He's on the down low. You still can't go saying that, especially to the media, and call yourself a professional. And yeah, I kind of have a little bit of expertise in this, so I can say this, YouTube, and call yourself a professional in law enforcement. Not to mention, call yourself the head of our nation's formerly most prestigious law enforcement arm. I think today, calling it the most prestigious could be argued. On April 5th, the DOJ, Pam Bondi at the helm, appeals the judge's ruling to the 4th District. 2 days later, the appeals court unanimously denied the Trump administration's appeal. On that same day, April 7th, the Trump administration, knowing more than anybody else, appeals the 4th District ruling to the Supreme Court. And I don't know if you're going to figure out that apparently unanimous seems to be a running theme here, but 3 days later, the Supreme Court turns back a 9-0 ruling against the Trump administration, stating the following: the United States acknowledges that Abrego Garcia was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador, and that the removal to El Salvador was therefore illegal. On April 14th, the president of El Salvador, this was Monday. Yes, Monday. Nayib Bukele visited the White House and, true to the role of Trump's bitch, said that it would be absurd to return Garcia, even though the guy sitting right aside of him is a known moron, and his administration admitted he shouldn't be there, that Garcia should not be in El Salvador. The rest of us admit that Trump shouldn't be there. I digress. And Bukele said the following: are you suggesting I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? Really, dude? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States? Of course I'm not going to do it. That question is preposterous. Nayib. Here's how you act if you're not really Trump's bitch. You don't say something stupid like you're smuggling somebody who was smuggled to you. The smuggling is over. This is where you make things right. Does that make a little bit more sense? But because the most powerful man in the world is really anything but, you're just as impotent. And that's why somebody with a set of balls Senator Van Hollen goes down, talks to their vice president, who is Bukele's bitch, apparently. He says, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I got nothing. That is due process. That is what has been denied to Abrego Garcia and his family, and now all of us. At the beginning of this, I reached out to the white people watching, and I asked, do you think this can't happen to you? It's going to happen to you. Maybe because you're gay, like me. Why don't we ask the hairstylist that was already taken and deported? These are not these criminals that we were told about. Remember the rapists and the murderers that were coming across the border in droves? Like they got their swords waving in the air and they're carrying pirate flags. That's what we were meant to think. But that's not who he's sending over. These people are being deported because they're different, because they're brown, because they're gay, because they don't golf, because they're not rich. And this administration has found whatever pathetic excuse to do it. And you're letting it happen by sitting there on your ass thinking it's not going to happen to you. I went up against the Trump administration twice during my career in the Secret Service, and I won both times. That's what happens when you have a set of balls. This is Up the Middle. Politics for the rest of us. From me, Yergs, a voice that sounds like yours. I've got to take a break. I need to tell you where everybody's at. And then when we come back, I think we'll just jump right in to the Sixth Amendment and see where that pertains to this whole show. Again, this is Up the Middle on the Mastiff Media Network. We'll be back right after this.
Hey gang, it's Yergs from Up the Middle. Are you conservative? Tired of being told what to think or how to think it? Or that you have to support a certain regime or quote-unquote administration? Switch on over to Right Talk Radio. Radio and conversation and political talk for free speech and for conservatives in their right mind. Right Talk Radio by Mastiff.
Momentum Fitness and Wellness. I'm back. I'm working out again. I feel better than ever. And what has that helped me to develop? I thought I just heard my dogs barking. They're both sleeping right here. What has that helped me to develop? Momentum. What else? I'm getting back fitness. And overall, getting back or maintaining wellness. Do that at Momentum Fitness and Wellness on US 19, Pasco County, Bayonet Point, and Jasmine Estates. Go to MomentumFitnessandWellness.com. I might have to go to another commercial because I'm hearing some crackling. But that doesn't mean you can't stop your way to the gym. MomentumFitnessandWellness.com. Just go right up to the door. There's a QR code like I use here. Scan the QR code, sign right up, and get on in. Momentum Fitness and Wellness. I am gonna take another break quick just to fix this audio issue. I know what it is. It happens, a couple times a week. It's my audio interface. So let me go to some other music, and I'll be right back. So I think that's fixed. Yeah, it sounds better. All right, let's get into it. Sixth Amendment. Moving right along. Actually, if you're about, I don't think there's anything that we're going to lose or anybody that we're going to lose. So jump over to Yerg's Radio or yergs.com, yergs.radio or yergs.com. Got to get used to that. If you think we're going to lose you, you're not going to lose us by going to either one of those two. Another place you're not going to lose us is Radio X, radiox.com.au. Now has us all 10 hours a week and has since we started with them. We started with DNR Studios. Go to dnrstudios.com and download the app, the DNR Cast. WZQR in Pineland has all 10 hours. Radio X, I always said that one. Rainbow Radio, Yerg's Radio, and coming soon, Right Talk Radio. Also, we're working on the Biz Growth Collective. We got some technical issues. I got to meet with John and see if I can, without getting too far into it, see if I can fix some things and just make that better, more productive life. All right. The Sixth Amendment. Oh, you know what? I really didn't get into some of the search stuff though, or the That's not searches and seizures. That's the self-incrimination. I think the bigger thing right now, we'll come back to that and do more about the Fifth Amendment because there's courses on the Fifth Amendment. The one I wanted to get in today was with regards to due process. So self-incrimination we'll deal with also, but I want to get through the entire Bill of Rights so that when you see this stuff on the news, you understand why it's there. And because of the fact that you don't understand the Bill of Rights is why it's there. Amendment number 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. Trial. Coinciding with due process. Pam, you've said this guy's guilty without giving him a trial. By an impartial jury, which is going to be nice to try and find now that you were blabbing all over the TV. By an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. What did you tell Abrego Garcia before shipping him off to a concentration camp? Let's call it what it is. To be confronted with the witnesses against him. Who is the one saying he's this big gangster guy? And again, maybe he is. But that does not deny him these rights. And to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. He needs to be able to build a defense. And to have assistance of counsel for his defense. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Again, denied. Why? Is it because you don't have those witnesses as you accuse him of being a gang member? Maybe your witness is the tattoo artist that put the MS-13 gang sign on his belly or arm or chest or wherever. If I took this shirt off, you would see from DC Comics, you would see from DC Comics the Green Lantern logo. Does that mean that I have a magic ring? Because I have the Green Lantern tattooed on my chest? No. It does mean I'm a Green Lantern of sorts. Here I sit defending the universe. But that doesn't mean that I have the green ring. His lawyer is up here in Baltimore, up here in the States. I'm referring to El Salvador, is up in the Baltimore area. But the amendment actually says to have the assistance of counsel. Where was his lawyer when you declared him to be a member of MS-13 and shipped him off to another country that he had received asylum from, by the way, or at least was in the process at least presented some sort of case that it would not be appropriate for him to live there. Maybe because he was not a part of MS 13. Until he's tried by way of the due process that he's already been denied, we'll never know. The Sixth Amendment, again, in a nutshell. On to number 7. The Seventh Amendment. I got to take notes as I'm doing this now because each of these is now being its own independent individual video. Maybe I'll add this 7th because this is probably going to be short too. Seventh Amendment, in suits of common law with a value in controversy shall exceed $20. That's not too difficult today. Keep in mind this is a 200-year-old document. In suits of common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. So in other words, when he does come back, if he's not already dead, and he sues your ass for violating his rights in the state of Maryland, where Donnie Boy doesn't have reach to pardon you in a civil case where he can't pardon you anyway, he has the right to a jury trial. And that's it. That's 7. In other words, we're not talking about small claims court. I think 8 is I think 8 is rather relevant to this case as well. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Is it usual? Do we normally ship criminals off to another country? Is that a thing? I mean, let's say, for example, we did give them due process that they are owed. Still, do we just boot them out and off they go? Or is it just for the people who are here illegally? Which I remind you, so far Garcia was here legally. Of course, he was denied bail because that's a part of the due process that he never saw. There was no opportunity to be fined because we skipped that part too. And then he was off to the gulag, to the concentration camp of our bitch friend in the South, El Salvador. Nine, a little confusing, but we'll talk about it. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So they all apply, is what that's saying. I'm actually going to look that up too, just to make sure that I'm getting it right. But I believe that is, in other words, you can't apply one and not the other. The Ninth Amendment addresses rights retained by the people that are not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. It's part of the Bill of Rights. The amendment was introduced during the drafting of the bill when some of the American founders became concerned that future generations might argue that because a certain right was not listed in the Bill of Rights, it did not exist. However, the Ninth Amendment has rarely played any role in U.S. constitutional law until the 1980s, was often considered forgotten or irrelevant by many legal academics. In the Public Workers v. Mitchell in 1947, the U.S. Supreme Court held that rights contained in the Ninth or Tenth Amendments could not be used to challenge the exercise of enumerated powers by the government. If granted power is found, necessarily the objection of invasion of those rights reserved by the Ninth and Tenth Amendments must fail. Some scholars have taken a different position and challenged the court's reasoning, while other scholars have agreed with the court's reasoning. So basically, if it's not here in these 10, that doesn't mean you don't have it. It's ruled that the Ninth Amendment does not necessarily limit governmental power, nor justify expansion. Here's the part that sucks about the Constitution as far as rulings go. Sometimes the dissenting opinion makes more sense than the one for the ruling. Okay, that's at 114. I just got to take some certain notes, and for the edited version, it'll go to YouTube. On to number 10. The 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved for the states respectively or to the people. Like maybe declaring him a criminal inside the borders of the city of Baltimore or of the state of Maryland. Not having broken federal law that nobody accused him of breaking until they decided to kick him out. I just kind of have a feeling it doesn't matter what I say as far as opinions or citations. I mean, it's not like I'm citing a government document, like, for example, something from the National Archives. Oh, wait. All right. That's the Bill of Rights. What I want to know should he still be here? I think every court has, remind you, unanimously said that. So we'll see what happens if he's even still alive. Superfan Ken says allegedly, gang member Pam Bondi of the Lion Brigade, to me, you will always be a gang member to me. So I guess what you're saying is that if he had some sort of history in El Salvador, he's going to have that same history here. Well, then we shouldn't have offered him asylum. Or he's saying that Pam Bondi is the one that's always a gang member. Because my understanding, she pretty much worked for Ron DeSantis when she was down here in Florida. Ken also says, one thing we do know for sure, Trump, a felon that should have done time, but Garcia didn't get due process. Trump wants to deport anyone that doesn't agree with him or doesn't look like him. Yeah, definitely. And what's scary and unfortunate with that is that he's doing it. He's going after Harvard University. Really? Harvard? You're going to go after Harvard? When you can't go after El Salvador? Come on, man. Pam is a gang member. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. So we got through the Bill of Rights a little faster than what I thought, but I think it was, like I said, there's courses where every day you study these. And in the process of that, I know because I did it in college, you study the case law that I kind of breezed through quickly. I think also we should probably just take a look at some news. You know what I just realized? I never shared my screen today. Everything else was going so well too, I think. Yeah, well, I'm not filming it all over. When it's a radio show anyway. I do want to probably show this though. The other thing I'm doing, I'm opening a new window for each segment. And then tabs throughout that one window are for that one segment. And it'll be a lot easier to create the show notes after, I think. That's the theory we're working off of. All right, so let's take a look at some Trump news. By the way, obviously, you see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Phone numbers, 844-GAY-LGBT or 888-88-YERGS. You can call and we can talk that way too. That's allowed. Trump news. What's the latest? Trump blasts Fed Chair Powell, saying termination cannot come fast enough. That's 4 hours ago. 1 hour ago, we have the latest on Trump's presidency as he blasts Fed chair and navigates tariff talks. Both of those are from CNN. From CNBC, he calls for the Fed to cut rates. Says Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. There's something to Google. I see. I think that's totally independent. I don't think you can fire him. Are you seeing that? Look at that. Can the president fire? Is as far as I got. And what is the first one that comes up? The Fed chairman. Powell, whose term runs through May 2026, has said removal of top officials from the independent central bank is not permitted under law. What power does the president have over the Federal Reserve? A president can influence Fed policy, according to the Brookings Institution. A president can influence Fed policy mainly through his nomination of members of the Federal Reserve Board, subject to confirmation by the Senate. Adriana Kugler's term as one of the 7 board members expires in January 26, giving Donald Trump an opening to fill. Can a president remove a Fed chairman? The president does not have the legal authority to dismiss a chairman before the end of a term. Although this fact has never been challenged in court, the current chairman is Jerome Powell, who was sworn in on February 5th, 2018. The President of the United States appoints the Federal Reserve Chairman with the advice and consent of the Senate. The chairman's term is 4 years. So let's go back to which one was it? The president does not have the legal authority to dismiss a chairman before the end of a term. The legal authority. That has not stopped this administration. How many other things have they done already in the first quarter for which they had no authority? Plenty. Another acceptable answer would be most. So is he possibly in jeopardy? Yeah, I would say so. I don't see him being renominated next year, unless it's done by J.D. Vance because Trump ain't around anymore. I'm not wishing that, but I'm not saying I'm going to be sad by it either. So let's look at Fed Reserve news, because Jerome Powell's been saying literally what everyone else according to the Associated Press yesterday. Jerome Powell said the Federal Reserve can wait on any interest rate moves. 5 minutes ago on Al Jazeera and 2 hours ago on NPR, Trump has called for the termination of Federal Chair Jerome Powell. United States President Donald Trump has lashed out at Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, saying the economic leader's termination cannot come fast enough. Treasury sanctioning Yemen, Italian Prime Minister. Nothing else on the from Al Jazeera, which I find ironic, as they don't exactly like Trump. Here's Powell speaking at the Economic Club in Chicago. Ken, let me know if you can hear this.
Everyone, once again, please welcome past chair of the club, Deborah Cafaro.
Yay.
Thank you. Greetings. I want to warmly welcome you to today's Economic Club of Chicago program.
Chair Jerome Powell.
Thank God for fast forwarding. Okay.
Thank you and good afternoon. It's great to be back in Chicago.
Okay, already this guy sounds smarter than Trump.
And thanks for that kind introduction, Austin. So I'm looking forward to my conversation with Professor Rajan Raghu. But first, I'll briefly discuss the outlook for the economy and monetary policy. So at the Fed, we are always focused on the dual mandate goals that Congress has given us: maximum employment and stable prices. Despite heightened uncertainty and downside risks, the U.S. economy is still in a solid position. The labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but is still running a bit above our 2% objective. Turning briefly to the incoming data, we'll get the initial reading on first quarter GDP in a couple of weeks. The data we have in hand so far suggests that growth has slowed in the first quarter of this year from last year's solid pace. Despite strong motor vehicle sales, overall consumer spending appears to have grown modestly. In addition, strong imports during the first quarter, reflecting attempts by businesses to get ahead of potential tariffs, are expected to weigh on GDP growth. Surveys of households and businesses report a sharp decline in sentiment and elevated uncertainty about the outlook, largely reflecting trade policy concerns. Outside forecasts for the full year are coming down, and for the most part, point to continued slowing, but still positive growth. We are closely tracking incoming data as households and businesses continue to digest these developments. In the labor market, during the first 3 months of this year, non-farm payrolls grew by an average of 150,000 jobs per month. While job growth has slowed relative to last year, the combination of low layoffs and lower labor force growth has kept the unemployment rate in a low and stable range. Meanwhile, the ratio of job openings to unemployed job seekers has remained just above 1, near its pre-pandemic level. Wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, the labor market appears to be in solid condition and broadly in balance, and is not a significant source of inflationary pressure. As for our price stability mandate, inflation has significantly eased from its pandemic highs of mid-2022 without the kind of painful rise in unemployment that has frequently accompanied efforts to bring down high inflation. Progress on inflation continues at a gradual pace, and recent readings remain above our 2% objective. Estimates based on the most recent data from last week show that total headline PCE prices rose 2.3% over the 12 months ending in March, and that excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core prices rose 2.6%. Looking forward, the new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. These policies are still evolving, and their effects on the economy remain highly uncertain. As we learn more, we will continue to update our assessment. The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. Both survey and market-based measures of near-term inflation expectations have moved up significantly, with survey participants pointing to tariffs. Survey measures of longer-term inflation expectations, for the most part, appear to remain well anchored as well. Market-based break-evens continue to run close to 2%. So, as we gain a better understanding of the policy changes, we'll have a better sense of the implications for the economy and hence for monetary policy. Tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation. The inflationary effects could also be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully to prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to make certain that a one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. As we act to meet that obligation, we will balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans. We may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. If that were to occur, we would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the potentially different time horizons over which those respective gaps would be anticipated to close. As that great Chicagoan Ferris Bueller once noted, life moves pretty fast. For the time being, we are well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. We continue to analyze the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. We understand that elevated levels of unemployment or inflation can be damaging and painful for communities, families, and businesses. We will continue to do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you, and I look forward to our discussion.
And there you go. Statistics, information, intelligent evaluation. Something Trump has not done in the entire first quarter of this year's term, of this year's first term. And that is why he's not lowering rates, because there's no need to. Just because Trump doesn't like it doesn't mean it's at a bad spot. Remember, the U.S. economy was the best one in the world leaving the Biden administration. Issues though there were, definitely. Nobody's denying that. And I think the Democrats who kind of sort of tried to, or at least skirt it, have accepted the obvious. Grocery prices are not where we'd like them to be. And I think you're going to try to see income going up, although that's not going to happen, in lieu of the prices coming down. Anyway, this link will be in the show notes. You can see the remaining 40 minutes. I'm not going to sit here for 25 more minutes and try to get 40 minutes in, and that's not going to happen. But also, you can go and watch it yourself. As for Trump, that seems to be his pissing match with the Fed chair. So I do want to tell you a story. Presidents have an uncanny way of predicting the future. They say things, just in general, and it happens. Look at that. It happened. Well, he must know what he's talking about. Pre-Trump, when a president said something, it happened, by and large. There's one example that did not happen, and I was pretty disappointed because it kind of broke the string, broke the streak, but also I kind of wanted to see that go well. But I'll give you an example of one very simple example that did happen back in the 60s. Lyndon Johnson was sitting at his desk, now not the one in the Oval Office, but at his private office just off the Oval Office. And he turns in the presence of staff, which is how this usually works. He turns to his side. I'll do it to my left just because that's where the camera's set up. And said, you know, it would be really nice. And I'm paraphrasing too, by the way. But this is what he said, essentially. It would be really nice to have a tap of 7-Up right here. 7-Up drinker. And probably put a little bit of in there with it. You know what I'm saying? The next day, he comes into the office. And there it is. 7-Up on tap. Right aside of the president's desk. George H.W. Bush once said with regards to Saddam Hussein, I forget exactly how he worded it, but when I watched him say it on TV that day, and I was amazed that he said it, because I knew what it meant for Saddam Hussein. He essentially, again, we'll say, predicted the death of Saddam Hussein. Enter Bill Clinton, who unseats George H.W. from after his first term, prevents a second, and Saddam Hussein is never killed or captured. And like, wow, that looks bad. Perhaps part of the reason why he wasn't reelected in the first place. Or perhaps it was when he also said something similar to Trump. I'm not prepared to say that we're in a recession when the rest of the country was in a recession. So that was one where, like I said, I kind of felt bad because I wanted to like HW. Having met him during my career, I did like him. I don't have time to tell the story about when I drove him from the wine valley of Northern California, just above San Francisco, down into San Francisco International Airport. That was kind of a pleasant experience. But presidents have a way, as I said, of predicting the future. That Jerome Powell would leave simply by the end of his term coming up doesn't count. We know Trump ain't going to nominate him for another 4-year term. I don't think Jerome Powell is counting on that income. I think he's good. I would think the chairman of the Federal Reserve has enough retirement funds set up to last beyond his term, not to mention the speaking gigs that he can land. So I don't think he's worried for his own income. I think he's worried about what Trump is going to do to the rest of the economy. And because nothing has happened or will happen with Jerome Powell during the course of, what's left, I think it just makes one more example of how it makes Trump look outright pathetic. Really. He clearly doesn't look good getting in all these pissing matches that he loses. Canada, Mexico, the EU, they're all laughing at him behind closed curtains and doors. But when they're going together and forming coalitions that they already have, it's called NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and they're going together to form coalitions without the United States to continue the defense of Ukraine. What do you think they're thinking about this guy? So, yeah, it just makes him picking fights like this that go absolutely nowhere, that get nothing accomplished, just makes him look that more impotent. Because clearly, I think what's becoming obvious, he's no longer got the strength of an unopposed bully like he used to have. And I think that's only going to snowball. Got to take one more break. When we come back, I'll tell you some administrative stuff I think you're going to hear. We got some things being developed, some protections being done, and a projection of my own. It's kind of already come to fruition. 3 times, to be exact. This is Up the Middle, politics for the rest of us. I'm Yergs, a voice that sounds like yours on the Mastiff Media Network. We'll be back right after this.
What are you doing later? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to the gym, but not just any gym. Momentum Fitness and Wellness. Walk right up to the door. There's a QR code on the door. You can sign up right there. You've got no excuse. But not only that, their equipment is amazing. It's kept up well. It's expanded. There's stretching area. There's CrossFit. There's hardcore training. A dedicated area for stretching, dunk tanks, sauna, everything you need to get that Hernando beach body or keep your Clearwater beach body. You can train with your shirt off, you can scream, you can yell, and you won't be intimidated either. Go to Momentum Fitness and Wellness on US 19 in Bayonet Point, Jasmine Estates. Build the momentum. That momentum.
We're going to cut the live. We got this just in. Travis from The Point, Tuesday nights, The Point with Travis Evans. Good afternoon, pal. Thanks for checking in. Active shooter at FSU, so we're going to spend the rest of the show covering that. Speaking of breaking news, I want to also, reminds me, I need to send a link to WordCat, although it's the same one every day. Where's that? Here we go. Bear with me for a second, gang. Let me see if this is the same one. Same one. You can bookmark that. I can't type. Oh my God. I think some of the meds I'm on make me dyslexic. I can't pronounce that either. But anyway. So, yeah. Share this. We'll bring down the music. Well, that's Facebook. That's not going to help us. At least 4 hospitalized as active shooter reported at Florida State University. That's JB Bueno from WFLA down here in Tampa. Great. He got his degree in broadcast journalism. He's probably in his 30s. And he came to WFLA and really did their online presence. He has a newsroom that's separate from the newsroom that you see on TV just for YouTube and Facebook. It's a really cool situation that he's set up. And we'll listen in quickly for a little bit. This is WFLA in Tampa.
You are just reporting the facts and not you're not getting ahead of yourself, so to speak, and reporting something erroneous. So we're going to be, following suit here, and that's why we pointed out earlier that somebody had asked us, Brittany, is it one shooter or multiple shooters? With an active shooter situation, it's usually pretty generic, and there is no specific amount of suspects involved, as far as unless it's unless the detail is provided, right? Unless they actually say, it's one or multiple people on campus or on that particular, property with a firearm. So we're going to treat this extremely carefully with the information that's coming out. And one more time, if you're just joining us in the last few minutes, it's really important to note there's a lot of information flying all over the place on social media, claims left and right, including images. In the AI world that we live in, be very, very careful that, ask yourself, where is this information or where is this image or video coming from? We have seen in previous situations where a image or even a particular piece of video from a previous school shooting will start making the rounds. People think it's current, but actually it was from weeks, months, if not years ago. So be careful what you share and distribute on social media.
Exactly, JB. We have to be very careful of what we're reporting, how we're reporting it. We have to be very sensitive. Of course, there's a lot of questions at this hour, but we do know that police are on scene responding. And until we get that official word, we will be reporting how many and who's involved and what those numbers look like when we receive them from local authorities that are on the ground right now, but they're responding. We do know that FSU is on a lockdown right now, and I'm sure this is the Tampa Bay community. We have many people associated with students that attend that school right now. I know my photographer, Gordon, he has a daughter right now on campus who's in a classroom that's on lockdown. So he's communicating with her at this hour and making sure that she's safe. And she does not have the exact information right now because it's an active scene, and they are doing the best to be on lockdown right now and stay safe, JB.
Yeah, we have also opened up channels for people to be able to share with this live stream some of whether it's information. If you're trying to reach WFLA, whether it's to send us a photo or video, we of course make sure that we emphasize do not do so unless you are in the safest of situations. But anybody who wants to share along information from around FSU or even at FSU, you can do so on WFLA.com/report it. But again, it's only if you're in the safest of scenarios. But that also can be advantageous for us to get a better idea as to what's going on and pass along really good information to the newsroom that's monitoring this feed. If they are listening out in the WFLA newsroom, it looks like we're getting some buffering problems here from the Tennessee Street and Woodward Avenue camera over at FSU. Hopefully we'll get this. The signal is currently frozen. Hopefully we get this back up and running. In fact,
so Brittany, I'm going to
alert our team of that, and I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. And while JB is taking care of that, I do want to let you know that NBC News is just reporting that students are asked to avoid campus. All activities have been canceled. Individuals not already on the main campus at this time should avoid coming to the Tallahassee main campus. The school is saying on its website at this hour, they're just remaining vigilant and making sure that everyone knows to stay put where you are, maintain a safe location. And if you're not already on campus, avoid the area at this hour because they are responding and evaluating
in
the
addition
situation.
to,
let's say, remind our audience that we're here on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, on WFLA.com as well. Want to let our audience know we are not going to be reporting any claims out of our comment section on this live stream. Of course, that would be reckless and irresponsible.
Yeah, and that's what I like about them is that they're actually journalists. They have at least 4 hospitalized, and that's really it. And other than the obvious, and that things are locked down. If you are in Tallahassee, stay away from the campus. Don't be on the campus. Reach out to somebody that you might know and tell them to shelter in place if they're not already. And we'll pass this along to Sportcat, who's going to be up next in about 8 minutes with Sportcat's Daily Gazette. Ding. Was it like there's the bell? We were just talking about you, man.
What's up?
There's an active shooter at Florida State University.
Yeah, I heard about it as I was clicking over, and then I heard it could also be a drill. I don't know if it is or not.
No, because there's 4 taken to the hospital.
Okay. Well, they were supposed to be doing what we call it when we're training in EMS, where you moulage patients, should you bring them in like real scenario? And so I don't know. I don't know. I really haven't had time to, but that was one thing I heard, but that could be wrong. Maybe.
Well, I hope that that they're putting out 4 people in the hospital and that this is going all over media.
Well,
I hope it is
the media jumps.
Well, that's what we were just watching WFLA down here in Tampa, who's actually really good with stuff like that. The guy that runs their online segment, a guy named JB Bueno, is the guy who founded their YouTube and Facebook. And essentially they've got a newsroom in addition to the newsroom.
Okay,
or studio.
that's cool.
They have an online studio. That's not their TV studio. It's just one for incidents like this. They do amazing. Cool. Yeah. I go to WFLA.com is the best one. That's their site. Okay. But also, they have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel. Okay. I feel like I'm an actual weatherman now. They've taught me so much about hurricanes. Yeah, I know.
Well, we don't have any right now in the predicted future. I don't think, do we?
Australia does. I just talked to some friends of ours.
They have a cyclone. Yeah, they have a cyclone off of Brisbane. Errol.
They said out west. In fact, I knew that the ocean to their west was the Indian Ocean. They were sitting there going, I don't know, is it?
It is. It is.
So you and me do need to talk later offline.
Oh, you firing me again?
Damn it, Ross. Yeah. Every other. That's Blake. I fire him. He walks off. I don't get a chance to fire him.
I get fired every other day. Just keep bringing me back. I don't understand it.
We're thinking about going independent away from streaming service providers.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of things that we all want to do, include working together like we are already.
Sure.
But they're in the process of putting together a talk station to obviously also compete with, but also partner with Yerg's Radio and also Right Talk Radio, which is the conservative station that we're going to launch too. The things I mentioned to them is us I put you into it because you've been pretty big and you've been with me since the beginning, not as any sort of owner, but advisor and other positions and whatever.
Friend.
Yeah, I'd want you to be in the group that we're kind of forming, committee or whatever, to make this happen. And then the other thing was, as we are their night shift guys, and perhaps vice versa. Well, I mean, we can't with the Radio X because that's music. Sure. But once their talk station launches, definitely vice versa. The other thing I thought you would be better to do any intros for is them and Thin Line Radio.
Yes, they went in Australia bad. Yes.
So yeah, they can probably help each other out too if you haven't thought about it already. But that's it. I'll let that go to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Real quick.
In fact, one of their best jocks on Thin Line Rock Station, Erin, I think her name is an Australian, and she does a great show, and they love her. So yeah, they want to get in Australia. But apparently with whatever's Live 365, you have to pay for each country or something. I don't understand how it works.
So
but
I think there was another reason I didn't go with them. So what we're talking about doing is setting up a server in Nathan's house, which he has already set up. So, I mean, it really could happen rather quickly.
Okay.
And they would be our streaming service provider for the station. And we would be dropping BR Logic. We would have to get a website to replace Yergs.com, Yergs.radio. But, long story short, would not necessarily be a bad thing when we're no longer paying a streaming service. We've got that already. I would still be giving them something for lease of the space in the server, and electrical bills and so on.
Sure.
But anyway, we'll put you. Do you use Discord at all?
I do. I'm not like 100% active in it, but I do use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you an invite for that server and my server. Okay. So accept both of them when you can. And then
I think you and I are already friends or whatever it's called on Discords.
We are. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. A quick shout out to those on Talk TV 24. Remember, I'm going to be discontinuing within the next week or so. I don't know exactly when, but you'll want to go to yergs.com for the video. If you're a video guy or gal, obviously being on YouTube, it'll be the same feed on yergs.com or yergs.radio for the audio feed. That one's 24/7. We've got 24/7 programming. I'm working on that for Twitch because I'm finding that you can actually schedule broadcasts that we can, do a 24/7 channel.
I've actually got a following there. I don't understand it, but I've got a following there.
Tell them about me. I'm developing one too, and it's not quite as big yet.
I don't think mine's very big either, but I think maybe 50 or 60. I'd have to go look, but it's not many. It's a handful.
That's 49 or 59 more than what I got right now. And I think the one that I have right now might be my website server because it's Twitch that streams to my website.
Okay.
So to conclude also, gang, and we got 10 seconds for me to do it. We talked earlier about me having been censored on YouTube. I suspect there's going to be more of that coming down the pike. So I'm preparing for it now. The servers that Sportcat and I were just talking about are not in this country. So whether it's this administration or the next or anybody else wants to try to take us down, it ain't going to happen. Like they're trying to do to other independent journalists on both sides of the political spectrum. There are conservative journalists being targeted who are not pro-Trump that are having a tough time right now. So, but that's it. Active shooter at Florida State.
Yep, very little. Just got a WSB out of Atlanta reported that 4 are hospitalized and still ongoing. So it must be a real deal. So,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna have time to get into it today, but all right, my friend. Yeah, we're gonna cover some weird things. We're gonna talk about some of the things the media's got all whipped up. So please, everybody, come over and find us on the Paranormal Guys with a Z on YouTube. And I think, Ross, I need to discuss this with you. I think I'm going to change the name of that to the Sport Cat Shows, because we're more than just paranormal, and I've been getting some pushback on that. So
that makes sense.
But well, I have to figure. I don't think it's a big deal.
You can change your that's a what do they call it at YouTube? Is it a call sign?
Yeah, they've got a name for it, and I think you can do it like once a year or something. So I haven't.
I think it's once every 6 months or once every 3 months,
okay,
something like that. Yeah,
So yeah, I haven't changed it since the beginning. So
yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a pair of underpants. It's not like you're going to change that frequently.
No. So no, I want to
figure it out and use it, and off you go.
Yep. All right, my friend. Well, we will be carrying on and covering some things over on my channel, and then we've got all the weather and all that good stuff. So join us over.
I'll be back tomorrow, same time as usual, with Friday Fights. It'll be me and Matt Deemer, and maybe somebody else. We'll see what happens. But we
I've got a MAGA guy for you. So
that's right. You said that. Yeah, we'll talk.
I got two of them actually. So all right, my friend.
Have a good show, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow.
All right. Bye.
Oh, here goes the radio for you.
Okay, I'm pushing the button right now.
Yep, it's all you. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow.